Hey everyone, it's Friday. God, I never thought we'd see this day. It is Friday.
It comes
and
every week.
It does, but this was a particularly endless week. It felt like. I mean, whereas has it been like a 12-day week really? Because last weekend was the draft. I think that's what it is. But we're it's Friday. Can't wait to get to the beach. But first, here's Russ with something to say.
Well, let's talk Olympics because I'm going to give you the tone of what the Olympics are like in my house. We have watched it a little bit, and the overall consensus here is, why are we watching it if these are preliminaries? Why are we watching preliminaries at all? Why are we just not watching? Why are we just watching medals? And you know what? I do feel like they're suffering from that. I think people back in the dark ages when there wasn't as much to do would sit through a lot of those other things. Kev, we have flipped around so much, and if somebody doesn't have a chance to win the medal, it doesn't stay on long in the house.
Yeah, well, it's been upset when it's in Japan, and then it'll be true in China as well for the Winter Games. Is it's upside down. Like they're running live swimming for the finals in the mornings, and at night it's the preliminaries that we get to see live. So
yeah,
it's just kind of an odd thing. I've actually enjoyed them. I've watched a lot of them. And I like to see a little bit of everything. I'm always so amused that I get so interested in volleyball when I could care less about it all the times.
Yes.
But I ended up watching this morning and live early in the morning France versus ROC volleyball because, if the French won it, it was going to make it hard for the U.S. to get into the round. And, I ended up watching live. So I have found myself watching other things, baseball and things, but I'm still very interested in Olympics.
It's weird. I'm not doing it because of any kind of sort of protest or anything. I just really don't. The Summer Olympics are the ones I have little interest in, and the Winter Olympics, because of hockey and other sports that I'm interested in. And I just really I've seen maybe 5 minutes when I was flipping through the channels, and I quickly just kept going because it didn't really grab me. Maybe later on I will, but I'm more interested in Major League Baseball right now and still focused on the NHL because of all the news that's going on. So
I like the change. We have it on every night here actually, and I love watching bizarre sports. I love watching water polo.
I tried watching steeplechase. I'd rather see horses do it. It was bad.
I really I love to watch my family just crack up at dressage. That is the funniest. That is one of the funniest things to watch ever. It really is just absolutely ridiculous.
Want to know something? I know some people, and in my house that is something that gets watched.
I completely respect it. Although I do believe the horses should be given the medals, but I do think that
it's really hard. And I don't know if they pushed it because I haven't watched it live yet. Have they pushed Springsteen's daughter because she's in?
I haven't seen any of that. No.
Oh look! Once I said that to Mike,
I didn't know she was there. Interesting.
I hope she doesn't sing because then I want my money back.
No, but I really like handball. I think handball's a fun sport to watch.
It's a weird thing. I grew up with handball, hitting it against a wall. And this is a different kind of handball. So
handball's crazy because they pull the goalie all the and it's crazy. There's this wacky stuff that goes on.
I couldn't get into it.
I got actually a handball story.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
wow.
Kevin's the man of a million stories.
Yeah, the sports festivals that they used to hold every summer for all the different sports in the off Olympic years. I always went to do the hockey because they always had hockey there as well.
Yeah.
But because Cami Granado was playing team handball for USA,
I
actually went over there and did a story on Cami Granado. So I have actually written and I have attended a team handball game. I bet there's very few sports writers in this country that have covered team handball.
I bet you're right.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I covered one of my claims to fame was covering Olympic long jump skiing. I did that because I was at the thing, and where you can take the media, you can take the media buses to any event in the Olympics. So I went to the Vancouver long jump, and while I was there, I looked up online I found a website that like talked about long jump skiing. I quick emailed the guy. I said, "Hey, I'm here right now. I'm just doing nothing. I want to write a story about this. You mind if I do? I'll do it for free. I'll interview whoever you want. Tell me what to do." And the guy sent me a quick thing, and I wrote the whole story. I had fun with it.
Well,
it was great.
I don't understand how somebody who does the triple jump doesn't tear their groin, because it really looks impossible to do,
especially on skis.
Talking about let me just transition quickly.
The way you swivel the leg there.
Yes, it's called ski jumping. I'm sorry, I called it long jump skiing.
There you go.
But here's one more thing about this too. We do watch a lot of I do think beach volleyball is a blast to watch. It just is. It's fun.
It's not bad. I covered beach volleyball once. It's not bad.
There really are some incredible plays. There's fun skill involved, and it really is. That's on here. My wife watches it all the time. She loves beach volleyball, both men's and women's.
What's amazing to me about that sport is, I know you can attest to that. We've all walked on the beach, and you know how hard it is to walk through sand. And they're actually out there trying to dig up volleyballs in trying to get through all that.
I was watching Canada play Brazil last night, the women's beach volleyball. And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, these are two countries that just never seemed like they should compete in anything together, like Canada and Brazil. But
but that's not the reason I watch beach volleyball.
I know.
I was counting the seconds. It took you 59 seconds.
I tried my hardest to not go there, Mike.
How long is it before Mike's going to make a second?
Okay, let me just quickly transition.
By the way, you're why my wife can't watch this show. By the
way. Oh my goodness.
Let me just quickly transition to tomorrow is the Major League Baseball trade deadline, and we've seen some ridiculous deals, and I don't know if it's confirmed yet. The Max Scherzer and Trey Turner. And okay, that one hasn't been confirmed yet, but Joey Gallo and Anthony Rizzo. This is the funny thing about Major League Baseball, Kev. Okay, the Yankees trade for Anthony Rizzo. I believe, he was on the World Series team with the Cubs when they won.
Yeah.
Big left-handed bat, pretty good player. They're paying none of his salary, zero, zippo. With the which means for all the stuff that the Yankees talked about going over the luxury tax, they haven't had to, because the Rangers are retaining most of Joey Gallo's salary, and the Cubs are retaining all of Rizzo's salary, and you've got all these other deals going on. Kyle Schwarber going to the Red Sox, Berrios going to the Blue Jays. I mean, everybody's loading up right now.
Yeah, I wondered when I was reading that, I wondered if there ought to be a rule, and obviously it would have to be in the CPA, that says because this is just legalized cap circumvention, or in the luxury tax, there should be a rule in there that says any trade made that isn't in the off season, and during the season, you can't retain any salary.
I would agree with that. That they really should do that, because it's a shell game that these billionaire owners are playing now with their fans, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll go over the luxury tax if we find the right player," and nobody's going over it so far for those teams that said they would.
I'll tie this into hockey for a second, because there's a big push. When I was talking to some people, some GMs, that they said that basically there should be a rule that says if you trade for a player, you can't put them on LTIR for a year, and that's something that I think
you can't. How do you do that though? That could
obviously it kills what these kind of things are happening now. But
I know, you can't do that. I don't think
that'll never get through.
I have some breaking news when we start.
All right, let's start. All right, the day is all right. Hi everybody. Hello, Hockey World. It is Friday, July 30th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and please stop raining.
I have breaking news. I'm Russ Cohen. I'm still here.
Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday, 12 hours a day, to bring you the top stories in sports. And we are today. I wanted to start off, but Mike has some breaking news. Go ahead, Mike. You can go.
And this is Russ being here is an E5. The Boston Bruins tweeted out about 10 minutes ago a statement from David Krejci. Krejci is going back to the Czech Republic. He is not signing a new contract with the Bruins. Yep. So, you can officially change your predictions, because now the Bruins, without Krejci, this means that probably Charlie Coyle or Nick Foligno, who's not, or Eric Halla, is their number 2 center, and they are severely weakened by the loss of Krejci.
Go
They're
ahead.
not a playoff team. That's the way I see it.
No, when I talked about this yesterday, I made my prediction based on the fact that I said, and I even said on the show that Krejci was going back to the Czech Republic yesterday. And I think that and I made that
shocked me
prediction based on
yesterday, and it shocks me today.
because I think honestly, Krejci is a player that the Bruins sort of look at as a sometimes player. He's hurt a whole lot, and them not having Krejci in the lineup is nothing that they're not used to, and I think that the additions they made are pretty solid. So,
No, wait, hold on. Just because they're used to him being out occasionally doesn't mean they rely desperately on his offense. Like last year, they relied desperately on his offense.
And he's been healthy the last 3 seasons.
I mean, yeah, but I'm granted, and it's a very good point. I'm not disagreeing with you there, but he, I don't know. I don't think that he is as vital to this team's success as you do.
I think he's extremely vital. He was extremely vital, Kevin, because they paired him with Taylor Hall after the trade, and Taylor Hall scored, I think, 8 goals in 16 games. There was some chemistry there. Now it's it was only about less than a month, but now I think that puts the Hall addition in question because now he really doesn't have a center, and that was that was in some ways the problem in Buffalo because it didn't work with Eichel. Then Eichel was hurt, and he was on an island all by himself.
Yeah, they're crying in Boston right now. They really are. Like, maybe from the management perspective, they look at it in terms of, well, he's always hurt. But I can tell you that the players on that team just really, really think he's important to have around. And, when he's on, he's really on.
Not questioning that.
The fan base, I'm sure they're going to be very saddened by all this. Like, there's a lot of angst in Boston about what life is going to be like after Krejci left because he's, kind of their second guy. You got one line, and then when he's in, he makes it gives them 2 really strong lines. So it's a difficult loss for them.
And he is extremely important to that Bruins power play. It's the perfection line and Krejci. And now, either McAvoy or Grzelcyk or whoever, now you take him off, that probably Taylor Hall takes his spot on the top power play. Maybe that will work, but it was a unit that was extremely effective regular season and playoffs without fail. And now I think that's a big loss for the Bruins.
I might be wrong, and Bill C in the chat room as a Bruins fan says I'm completely wrong, and I think that they'll be able to survive this. I do. I think that, I am normally not a fan of Bruins management. I'll throw that out there right now. Like I haven't been a fan of what they've done usually, but I feel like
Bruins management is partially to blame here.
I think they're fully to blame for this. I honestly think
I'm going to go back to they brought in Taylor Hall. They gave him $6 million. Like you guys said, and probably everybody in Boston said, well, you can't give Krejci that much. He's just going to come back cheap. Well, Krejci is a more effective offensive player the last 2 years than Taylor Hall.
Yep.
And I think that kind of attitude probably got Krejci mad. And he was probably like, you know what? If this is all you're offering me, I'm not playing.
And I'll say this finally, and then we can move on. This offseason, now you've seen 2 cornerstones of a team that, contended for the Stanley Cup every year, Rask and Krejci. And Krejci was respected in the Boston market. For some ungodly reason, Rask was not. And if Rask doesn't play again, I think this organization will feel the absence of those 2 players more than they ever expected.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Mike.
Yeah.
Do we really trust the goaltending they've got now? Like, he had a good year, Allmark did, but
not 100%.
Well,
I think the other guys did too. I think both of them are pretty darn good.
I like Allmark. The question with him is not the quality of the play; it's his durability. He's gotten hurt every year, but they had no choice. And Swayman's a good young goaltender, and if the Bruins play good defense in front of him, which they normally do, then I think he has a good chance to be successful. But Rask was underappreciated and always criticized in that market, and I don't get it. And I think if he doesn't come back, they'll feel that loss. But anyway, let's move on.
I do agree.
I thought the Allmark was a good choice, but if he's a good choice, we don't know for sure how he's going to respond. He's played for a poor team,
right?
Yes.
And now he's got to play for a good team where the expectations are much higher. And just one final thing about Krejci. Krejci made Hall worth $6 million.
Yes.
Yeah.
he's not a $6 million player without Grayson.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
You're right.
I mean, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Today we're going to talk about a little bit about. We have some rumors. We have some things that broke yesterday that we haven't talked about yet. I guess.
But we can fold to
obviously there's one that I really want to talk about, but I can talk about it in context of the Metro division. That's the
right.
Reeves
Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get to Reeves as well. But the signing last, the big thing last night, of course, Columbus going out and getting their defenseman signed up in Renz and oh my gosh,
it's Zach Werenski.
I'm like Renz, man. It's been a long week. Sorry, in Werenski, and this meant a lot on a lot of levels. I got a text from one of our buddies who is a Columbus Blue Jackets fan. He's like, thank God, somebody's willing to play for us, somebody's willing to stay with us.
For how long?
The Blue Jackets needed this. They needed a player who was a star to stay with them.
Well, and I mean, I understand that point of view because everybody is left, Panarin and Nash and Bob and everybody. But the fact that he signed the 6-year deal doesn't mean he's going to be there for the entire 6 years.
But you don't know that, Mike.
I don't.
You're way out in front of your skis on this because Werenski, you don't know what he's thinking or how quickly they'll move. I mean, they clearly have some sort of problem there, but we don't exactly know what it is. Columbus is a nice city, so if it's competitiveness, maybe they'll kind of turn it around. But they paid too much. I think everybody agrees on that. And depending on who you talk to, it was anywhere from $2 million too much to $1.5 million or $1 million, depending on how you viewed it. But they had to do it. I mean, absolutely.
They had no choice.
Yeah, they had zero choice. They had to get him signed. They had to get him ready because doing that on top of their return for Seth Jones, which was pretty good considering all the issues they had in trying to deal him, meaning that he didn't know. They didn't know whether he would sign with anybody. It turns out he would sign with Chicago. So I think they've done okay given the circumstances that they had coming out of the season.
Well, one thing that I always like to do, or I always make a comparative to, is when contracts like this are signed, what kind of effect will it have on the market? And I'll tell you this: the Seth Jones and the Werenski contract are so way high and above what I think most people would have paid for those players, even though they're both really good players. I mean, good to great players. I don't think that a defenseman who hits UFA next year is going to be able to say, "Oh, I want the Seth Jones deal or I want the Werenski deal." The Werenski deal, like you said, was overpaid by probably a couple $1 million. So and Seth Jones, he had all the leverage, so he forced Chicago to give him the 8 years and the $9.5 million. So I don't think, like, for example, and of course I'm going to bring it back to Toronto, Morgan Riley's a UFA next year. There's no way Morgan Riley can say to the Leafs, "I want $9.5 million." If he does, he's not going to get $9.5 million anywhere.
Yeah, but he's not that level either. But but I'll take the Dougie Hamilton.
Yeah,
fine. So and that's still pretty darn good.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this is Morgan Riley will be an issue for the Leafs next year, no question. But
then next year they'll probably end up trading William Nylander because I think Morgan Riley is more important to the Leafs than William Nylander is.
We'll see what they do.
Depends on the season. Nylander was one of their most important players last year. If the season kind of goes the way it went last year, Mike, that wouldn't be the case.
Well, if the season goes the way it did last year, Kyle Dubas won't be the Leafs general manager, unfortunately.
That's true too.
But okay, let's let's
move on to the Metro. So Kevin and I have been doing this week, and we talked about it yesterday. We got a lot of great response from it. A lot of controversy yesterday stirred up all around the internets and stuff like that. Making our way too early predictions, way too early predictions, and noticeably, taking that on as a challenge. And like I said before, I really kind of look at this more like the control in the scientific, in the scientific method. This is the control. This is where we start. We're going to see where things go over the course of the summer, but this is where we are as of now. And today we took on the Metro, which I honestly think is the hardest division to pick. This division is so baffling. And you'll see that, I think, by the fact Kevin and we don't look at each other's picks when we do this, are really in very different places on this, in different spots. But I want you guys to start, Mike, with Russ, with your last place team in this division, which is really a tough one, honestly, I think, but you guys might not. So go ahead.
No, I don't think it's tough. I think Kevin's got it right. I think Columbus is eighth in this division. I mean, they're going through the rebuild now. They did you keep Werenski, and that's good. But the loss of Seth Jones is going to hurt. I did like them getting Jake Bean and signing him to an extension, but they don't have a lot of offense. And their goaltending, I think, will be better than it was last year because it's slumped last year. But there's not a lot there. They're not as bad as Arizona and Buffalo, but they're nowhere close to being in contention for a playoff spot. So I think they're definitely 8th.
Yeah, I think they're 8th too. I mean, they don't have a lot of veteran offense. They have guys that are younger that when they start to play and keep playing will get better over time, but not for this year. So that's why I have them last.
So we are all in agreement then, because I have Columbus in 8th as well. But it was hard to do in some, like, they're definitely the best last place team, right? Do we all agree with that in any division?
I don't know if Anaheim's going to give them a run for the money.
Yeah, Arizona. It's Arizona in the Central, Anaheim in the Pacific, Buffalo in the Atlantic, and Columbus. Yeah,
Anaheim has Gibson. And so that gives them, a leg up, but they don't have any offense either.
They have no offense.
Yeah, so
no, it's true. So that was a pretty easy one. Now this is where it gets interesting. Number 7, for Kevin. Kevin, you got to explain yourself on this one.
Well, I will.
The Pittsburgh Penguins.
I have the Pittsburgh Penguins is 7, but I did this with regard to what everyone has done in the off season, and
right
there that I still expect the Penguins to make a move or two. But if you look at that team, it seems stale to me, and this is a very tough division, very, very tough division. And everybody, like the Devils, are significantly improved. I think the Rangers will be different because they will be hard to play against. And they were on an upward trend. The Islanders are still going to be good. The Flyers got better. The Washington Capitals, we want to dismiss them every year. But then you look at their roster and you say, right, they're going to be like they were last year. Brian McClellan is going to make another deal for a defenseman, and they're going to be fine. So there's no place for me to put the Penguins. Down in 7th spot, and then we'll see what they do. But right now, if you're ranking the goaltending in that division, where do you put the Penguins goaltending?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And especially the confidence that they have in that goaltending.
I think that's one of the biggest issues now. Like, if how does he feel now with the way the Penguins talked about and the fan base has talked about? Goaltending there. So this to me is just a temporary thing. They could rise up. I mean, everybody wrote them off last year, and I didn't, and they hung in there, and they looked pretty darn good all season. That could happen again, but for now, losing Tanev either. So.
I mean, here's the Tanev loss. My thinking on this may have been skewed a little bit by the fact that I woke up this morning to Brian Burke on the radio, listening to him on XM talking about the team, and he definitely had a different, little bit more of a positive spin on it, saying, hey, which he's going to do. Of course, that's Brian Burke's job, but he also does, he's also an optimistic type guy. He does find the good thing. He does think that the goalies aren't as bad as they were, and he said flat they were terrible in the playoffs. I don't think Tristan Jarry's what you saw in the playoffs. I think he's a better goalie than that, and he wasn't.
I agree with that.
And then he also went through and said, hey, look at the Islanders are a really good team, and we dominated them at times in that series. We didn't win it, but it's true. And when you watch that series, there were moments when the Penguins were all over the Islanders, right? But at the end of the day, they didn't win it, and it's tough to put. So I don't have the Penguins in 7th. I'm going with the other one that you can put there, and that's the Capitals. The Capitals in 7th for me. Which I also went on last year. The Caps were going to struggle last year, and I was wrong, obviously. But here's the thing about when I look at the Capitals, and what makes this year so hard to predict, 2 things, is that we've seen 2 mini seasons in a row. And coming off of 2 mini seasons, with the Capitals have fallen, have run out of steam in the playoffs. Who's to say they're not going to run out of steam in Game 60 of a regular NHL season? To me, I think that that the age of that team is just, and I do think their defense. I mean, they might make another pick, like you said, Kevin. They might make another trade for a defenseman, but as of now, they haven't.
Yeah, we can't factor that in,
right? Because as of now, they haven't. So to me, I see them as, they got Ovechkin done, but they didn't really do much else.
Well, they traded Brendan Dillon, and that's why they're probably going to have to go and fill that spot with another defenseman. I mean, I agree again with Kevin on the Penguins. I mean, I don't think Brock McGinn and Danton Heinen replacing Brandon Tanev is enough. Now they're probably going to expect to get more out of guys like Kasperi Kapanen, who they brought in last year. The question is there going to be a fall off with Malkin, a fall off with Crosby? I mean, they're getting at that age where it's possible that they could take a step back. I don't particularly like their defense, and like you said, the goaltending is a big question mark. I wonder still if the whole thing in Chicago with the Fleury doesn't work out, whether he gets flipped to the Penguins. I know I talked to somebody who's in the Pittsburgh market, and he doesn't think that the Penguins are interested in all at Fleury, unless maybe Vegas, or if he goes back to Vegas, or Chicago retains salary. So right now,
going back to Vegas, he's a Chicago Blackhawk.
I don't know if the deal was rescinded because he doesn't want to go to Chicago, then he goes right back to Vegas. I believe that would be
the way this usually works. Isn't that way? If I remember right, Kevin, is that right? Like this.
Well, if the deal was rescinded, but on what grounds would it be rescinded?
If he refuses to report,
he refuses to report. Yeah.
He could retire, or he could just refuse to report, and then he goes back to Vegas, and then the trade.
Where he retires, it's moot, right?
Right, so, right, exactly.
Right. But I think that, I mean, I could see that. There's no way the Penguins aren't.
He hasn't agreed to the trade yet. He hasn't had a press conference. He hasn't said, you know what.
But he doesn't have the no movement. He didn't have the. He had the Hawks as one of the teams he could be traded to. So he has. So he can't. He doesn't have any say in it beyond that.
That doesn't mean anything.
That doesn't mean he has to show up.
Right.
No, it doesn't mean he has to show up. But if a player doesn't show up, I'm not really sure. I don't really remember what happens.
I don't remember what happens.
What happens in the situation, Kevin, if a guy doesn't show up?
Yeah, I don't remember. It doesn't rarely happen. All I could think of is the famous Red Kelly trade when he refused to go, and then it was rescinded.
It was rescinded.
That was 50 years ago.
A little while ago.
That's the only one that comes to mind.
That's your precedent.
No, I wasn't covering the league then. So.
Yeah, interesting. I can't see how the Penguins wouldn't accept Fleury if the Hawks were to take up like half the salary and then get
they're not doing that.
No, but if the Hawks get some, maybe the Penguins give them something significant for that.
Maybe the Penguins can give them to make them do that.
The Hawks made that deal because they need a goaltender.
I know they did, but maybe they get. I don't know. I'm just who knows. But yeah, the chances are. I think he's going to play for the Hawks. That's my gut.
Me too.
That's what they hope. So?
Yeah,
I think he will too.
He's too competitive of a guy. Once he gets past the shock of it all, he's too competitive, and it's a good team. It's not a bad market to play, and it's a great place to play.
Yeah.
All right, so so then we got to go to Russ, 7th team.
My number 7 is, as of today, is the New Jersey Devils. They still are nothing more than a 2-line team. Their defense is 3 men deep now. Their goaltending is good, but that's it right now. They're still going to have trouble scoring, and they're still going to end up there unless they continue to improve.
And that's my number 6 team. I think they're improved with adding Bernier as a number 2 behind Blackwood, with adding Dougie Hamilton. But there's a lot of youth there, and for all those guys, for Hischier to stay healthy, for Jack Hughes, I think Jack Hughes will take a step forward, but it's asking a lot for like all those things to happen and for them to contend for a playoff spot. So I think they're going to make progress, but I don't think they're going to be any higher than 6th.
Well, we're Kevin and I were both at 6 too. So I think unless you want to add anything, Kevin, they pretty much sums it up too. What they said.
No.
I agree that you guys are dead on with that. I do like Blackwood a lot. I think he's going to be a fun goalie to watch in the future. Number 5, Kevin. This is a good one. I like yours.
Well, I didn't do a 6 yet.
Oh yeah. Oh, I thought you said New Jersey too.
New Jersey was my 7.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. I apologize. Yeah, go ahead.
No, okay. So my number 6 right now. Now this is where it gets a little tough. And so right now my number 6 will be Pittsburgh because the goaltending is just not good enough, and they are going to start to have some trouble with the bottom 6 and with their bottom pairing on defense. So they're my number 6.
So we have the same 3 teams in different order in the bottom 3.
Yeah, actually we do, don't we? Actually, no, I don't have Pittsburgh down there.
Oh, okay.
Where do you have Pittsburgh?
And then, so I will get to there. I have because my bottom 3 because my 6th team is not New Jersey. I'm sorry. That's not asleep this week. I apologize. I'm doing a bad job because I just looked at my list. I'm like, yeah, we do. No, I don't. My 6th team is Carolina. And this was a tough one too because I do like the picking up of Anderson. I do think that's going to solidify their goal for the regular season, for sure. And also give them like more of a veteran presence back there, which is going to help, like a classy veteran presence back there. But But I think that as much as I like their top line, which I really like, beyond that, it feels like they've got 3-line threes to me in a way, and they do a good job at scoring by committee. They do find ways to score. Their defense, they revamped it with Cole and Bear, which is not to me the greatest revamping. They let a couple guys who are younger that
you're missing a key factor here, Rack, and that's Anthony D'Angelo, because that's the random element here. One that I think could potentially it could be a potential boon. It could also be a potential derailment of that team if he does what he did in New York, in Carolina. I hope for his sake that he just wises up and just plays hockey and shuts his mouth. But it's
possible. But I'm going to wait on that one for now. I'm not quite there yet with them.
I think there's with Carolina. I think there's not much of a chance of that being a bad situation. I think they're going in with their eyes wide open. I think they've already talked about it.
Yeah,
he's going to be on a short leash.
Yeah.
If he comes in and he just plays hockey and he was the player that he was the season before
the
explosion, and I mean they've got a real win there. I mean he can handle a power play.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and he's very slick offensively, and he can be a poor man's Dougie Hamilton.
And
that's a good point.
I think the atmosphere there. I mean, okay, we know the political situation with him. He's in Carolina. That's not New York City. New York City is a liberal town, and North Carolina is more conservative. So his beliefs, if he does talk about them, won't alienate the fan base there as much as it would alienate him in New York. But
Raleigh Durham is not.
I can tell you, there's some people that I know that have canceled their season tickets because of that acquisition.
Really?
Yeah, but I don't think they're the politics. I mean, we all know that's not what costs.
No. This has nothing to do with politics. Yeah. This has everything to do with what Don Waddell said as far as what he perceived as talking to some teammates and saying he's a really good teammate. If it's true that it was Mark Stahl wasn't even on the team with him last year. He was on the team with him before that. Nobody spoke to the Russians.
I guarantee it wasn't Mark Stahl.
I know that's what the rumor is. But nobody spoke to the Russians. I don't think they spoke to him where they would get a different opinion. And I don't know, did they speak to Keandre Miller? I'm not sure they spoke to Keandre Miller either. There is other issues here, and people are picking that over the politics, Kev.
Now, okay,
not all people, but some people.
I have Carolina at 5, so I'll just.
And I have New Jersey at 5, so we can get past that.
So I'll just explain it quickly.
Go ahead.
If as everybody knows, especially Russ, I was a Freddie Anderson defender in Toronto for his first.
Were you, Mike? I don't remember that.
Yeah. I want to enlighten you on that fact.
Okay. I recall a couple times having that.
Okay.
But this year, before he got injured, he was not playing well in Toronto. I think there was a slippage in his game. Obviously Jack Campbell took advantage of that and played really well. The Leafs were not interested at all in re-signing Freddie Anderson, and that speaks volumes. Now, maybe that's a failure of that organization, but Antti Ranta, all he's ever done is been injured. When he's healthy, he's a good goaltender, but he's more injury prone than Linus Ullmark. And Freddie Anderson, if he's healthy, which he should be, the question is what he'll do at that key time. And Russ has said that many a time that he doesn't believe he's a clutch goaltender.
In the playoffs, that's true. In the regular season, he's good.
And the other thing is, I'm waiting for them to pay Andrei Svechnikov, but I don't know whether they will. I could see a holdout here. Because there's always a tug of war between Dundon and players on his team regarding. Now he's a star player. He'll pay his star player, hopefully, but will it take another offer sheet like it took Sebastian Aho? I hope not.
Fair point.
Yeah, the one thing about Carolina that's fascinating to me is that, we look, at least I do, as Freddie Anderson being an upgrade over their goaltending, but their goldtending actually during the regular season was pretty good last year.
The numbers were good. We just didn't like the players involved. Yeah, but you're right. The numbers were good.
So my point is we're not really quite sure whether or not their goaltending will be better.
Interesting.
or not. And we really don't. So
That's fair.
That's why I looked at the Rangers, who I had at 5, and Washington at 3, and Carolina at 4. I think those 3 teams are going to be competing for those final 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That's how I look at it. Like the Rangers, I really like, because they got so much young talent that is going to get better. And I do like, even though I laughed when I heard about Ryan Reeves, I do think that, if you're harder to play against, it makes your team better. And it will be. So I think they've made some interesting improvements. And I didn't like the Buchnevich trade, but, I guess they had to give up something because, he was going to make, $5-6 million bucks.
Right.
And they had to get that. So I like the Rangers in there at 5, but I think they could be 4. I think, those 3 teams could be separated by 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, I mean, the Rangers to me, I mean, one thing that people just don't mention enough about the Rangers is they have Gerard Gallant as their coach now, which
well, they're talking about it, but
I mean, I like their young talent. I thought the Reeves acquisition was a strong one too, but I also really have a firm belief that Gallant,
my 5, so
Gallant with young talent.
Do your 5.
Yeah, I think Gallant with young talent is dangerous. I have the Rangers at number 2, by the way, but we'll get there.
Okay. Do your 5, Russ.
My number 5 is the Philadelphia Flyers, and
Okay.
I'll tell you what. A lot of times when teams try and patchwork what their problems have been for a couple of years, it either works great or it doesn't work at all.
Right.
I don't know what Carter Hart is this year. You can tell me that everything I've told you, that I really like this kid, but he still has trouble on the road, and he had a horrible year last year. Those are things that I don't count the bubble as being on the road because he showed up to the same bubble every day. That is a problem that I don't know that he's overcome yet. So those are 2 factors there. I don't know where they're making up the points for Jake Voracek either. I get that he's gone, and that's a positive in a lot of ways, but it's still not a positive with points on the scoreboard. And so, yes, they'll get a little bit more from their defense as far as points go. Yes, we're expecting the defense to be better, but again, I don't know how all these guys are going to interact. I don't think it's all a guarantee, and I'm putting the Flyers 5.
Okay, Flyers 5. So get you who do you have at 5, Mike? Then
5 was Carolina for me.
That was Carolina for you. Okay, so 4, Kevin, you've got the Capitals, and we just mentioned that. We talked about that. Let me put one more thing about the Capitals. I forgot to mention. This division is getting younger and faster, exponentially. Like the teams all around the Capitals are all of them. I mean, all of those teams are getting faster and younger. The speed to me is the Capitals issue. That's my issue. That's one of the things I want to mention. So who do you have? So then let's move up to Kev. Who do you have, Mike, at 4 then?
I have the Capitals at 4. I think they could challenge for a wild card spot. I'm waiting for Samsonov to really take the jump and be an effective NHL goaltender. But they got some insurance by getting Vanacek back. Their defense is weaker with the trade for Dylan, but if they make a deal for a defenseman, then that plugs up the hole. I'm still waiting for a resolution of the Kuznetsov situation. I don't think they want him on that roster, but right now with the amount of cap hit he is, I don't know whether they can move him. So that's a situation that may play out over the season, but they have some question marks, and that's the reason why I have them 4th. But I still think with the quality there in Ovechkin, they can challenge for a wild card spot.
Okay, 4 is where I have the Penguins, and I have, and it's like again, I said, I think honestly, it probably was swayed by a little bit by Brian Burke and kind of talking up his team this morning that I heard, because that's where we are right now. These teams are all so close that I was listening to him and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think that he's got some points there. He's still got some talent. But I like I said before, I can't. I think losing Tanev was just horrible. They should have found a way not to have that happen if they could have. But Burke acted like his contract was too expensive. So I don't know.
They didn't. I mean, they didn't have any choice. They really didn't have any choice. They were going to lose somebody that they liked. They liked McCann. Yes. That's why they traded him to Toronto. They apparently promised Jeff Carter they were going to.
Yeah, see, that's the issue that I have, right? So but that we'll get to that. I mean, so who do you have it for then, Russ?
The Rangers. So a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
the loss of Buchnevich is big because even if we're going to give Lafreniere 20 goals, Kakko hasn't shown me that he's going to become a goal scorer yet in the NHL. He still has trouble getting space out there. We'll see. Maybe Gallant will unlock that. Their defense is good. Their defense is good. They'll score them some points. There's no question. Miller will have an uptick for them. Shesterkin's good. Their goaltending tandem's good. Their bottom six isn't great. Now, if you want to tell me they're hard to play against, fine. If you're going to tell me now that Tom Wilson's not going to do anything when the Rangers play because Ryan Reeves is there, I'm going to say you're wrong because he's fought him a few times. And when I looked on Hockey Fights, the guy who's fought the most was actually, there was Englund and it was, who was the other guy? Hold on. Somebody wouldn't, Brandon Bowling. For whatever reason, they must have really hated each other. But my point is this. Yes, will Reeves be out there and possibly get ejected going overboard with Tom Wilson? Yes, because it's happened before. Is this making the Rangers better because he's going to be out there for 9.5 minutes? And if I'm the Capitals, I tell Wilson, I'm going to give you a little more ice time against the Rangers and play with their heads because if I have to put Reeves out there for 12 minutes, a guy who scores 15 points a year, that and again, Gaudreau is a nice player, but he's not scoring 50 points for the Rangers. Their bottom six is still in question on how much they're going to actually score. So that's why I have to put them fourth.
Yeah, we all know what the real deterrent would be if Tom Wilson, if Tom Wilson goes against, some star player or some young guy on the Rangers. It's not to go after Tom Wilson. It's to go after Carlson. It's to go after Ovechkin or Baxter. Right. You do that.
But to me, guys, this Tom Wilson thing is being blown way out of proportion. I mean, when I talk to, I talk to Tom Laidlaw quite a bit. He's our buddy. Kevin does a great podcast with him. And when the Tom Wilson thing happened last year, he was obviously ticked off. He's like, no, nobody stood up. No one battled. We don't have any tough guys. He said, but that's not new. And he said to me, and Tom's in that Rangers, alumni group, and they're all year they're saying this team is soft. This team this, and that was Tom Wilson's thing might have brought it to a head, but this was a situation that goes far beyond Tom Wilson.
Well, they're clearly it's on the mind of Chris Drury because now he's made three
more than Chris Drury. Let's be fair.
More than Drury. It's Sather. It's all these other people too, right? But
probably James Dolan. But
they were too soft. I mean, the reality is that they were.
Okay, they were a little too soft. No question. I'm with you, Eck. Now they went too much the other way. Why did you even get Jared Tenorti if you were going to get Reeves anyhow? And I remember I said they were going to get Reeves on the show. The only thing I got wrong was I said they were going to sign him, and Mike goes, "Oh no, they'd have to trade for him." I'm like, "Well, they're going to trade for him."
It's also getting guys that can play like Gaudreau and Bays, who are just tougher guys. They're tougher guys too.
Sure,
they can play. And I think that Buchnevich thing was tough. They have a lot of players like Buchnevich, so that's why they made this move.
They're going to have to play with guys like Hedel and guys that aren't necessarily good at scoring. The other thing is now you're keeping Morgan Barron out of the lineup because you brought in Reeves. And now, if you're going to play Rooney at center, you can't even play Barron on wing now because you brought Reeves in. Again, it is just, this isn't going to make them a playoff team. It will make Ranger fans happier that they're harder to play against, but it's still not going to make them a playoff team.
It'll make here. That's the big thing. I mean, Dolan was out of this right from the beginning, and it's because he's kind of tapped into the fan base, or at least the businessman fan base, and that's what they complained about. They weren't tough enough. So I think he'll be happy with. They will be harder to play against, but it's just going to be the young talent that carries them. Adam Fox and Lafreniere. If they get better, then the team will make the playoffs. If they don't, then they won't.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's dead on. So 3, Kevin, you already mentioned that you had the Capitals there. I in 3 had this is where I put the Philadelphia Flyers. That's where I put the Flyers in number 3. And I really do. Like I said, I'm going to write an article about the return to an Ed Snyder summer. I'm going to call it because that's what it was. After years of the Flyers fan base being frustrated by just not just like very passive attachment, very, very passive reactions to what happened. I think they made some hell of moves. I mean, I'm not a Fletcher. I wasn't a Fletcher fan, but I'm more of a Fletcher's fan now because I think that the defense. They got rid of a lot of guys. They got rid of a lot of draft picks, but they got rid of guys and draft picks that they legitimately didn't really care about. I mean, the reality was, and that you can say whether that's right or wrong, but they didn't. They got players. Atkinson for Voracek is a huge win on many levels because it definitely not only clears out salary, it gets Giroux away from Voracek, which I know I've said before, but I think is an important thing to do. They're really close and they tend to feed off of negativity with each other at times. This puts Giroux back, and Atkinson's just got this good attitude. They bring in all these guys that were captains in the past, in different situations, or assistant captains. Ellis is a fire plug who scores big goals at big times and is the kind of guy that we haven't had in a while in Philadelphia. So I think, and I, although Jones, they could have done better than Jones. I'm not saying they couldn't.
What if Hart has a problem? How good do you feel about that goaltending cabinet?
No, I mean, if Carter Hart has a problem, they're in trouble, and that there's no question about it. But I don't see Carter Hart having a problem necessarily when he's got now way more experience in front of him to make him, because he's the kind of guy who's such a thinker and a mental guy that I think that if he knows that those guys are going to do what they're supposed to do in front of him, Carter Hart's a lot better.
I think the Flyers defense has improved exponentially. I like Ristolainen. I don't go along with the analytics nerds who think he's terrible. Some of them don't think he's an NHL defenseman, which just shows how clueless they are sometimes. Ellis was a really good to get two top 4 right-hand shot defensemen and give up. I mean, they gave up significant assets, but they had it was a really bold move by Chuck Fletcher. And the thing is, I think he had to do that because I think if they didn't do that, he's probably out of a job.
I think it came from above that he had to do these kind of things.
Now, the one area that I think that they're weak at is up the middle. I mean, Couturier is one of the best two-way centers in the league. Lawton is a good 3. I think they're going to need Morgan Frost to step into the number 2. And I don't know if, he's very young, so I'm not sure if he can do that. The whole Nolan Patrick thing is over with now.
I'm assuming Giroux's not going to play center because
I think Giroux has played much better on the wing.
He has, but they like to play him at center. So
yeah, if they're going to play him at center, then I think maybe you can get away with him as a number 2 center. He's a veteran and he's savvy enough to do it. And if they don't think Frost is ready and, they want to give him, maybe 3rd line or 4th line time, that's the thing. I just think they're overall improved. I had them 3rd, but the big question with me is Carter Hart. Because Martin Jones is not a fallback. The way he's played in San Jose the last 3 years tells me the best he could be is an adequate backup.
And Eck, I do want to answer. The chat room asked, could Derek Stepan be going to Philly? I've heard rumblings he could be, yeah.
Okay. So while we're here, I want to jump to Kevin's first pick because I think that since we're talking about the Flyers, Kevin put the Flyers on at the top. Explain, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, I did that just based on the fact it's interesting. You said you weren't a big fan of Chuck Fletcher because I wasn't either. I don't. To me, he's not aggressive enough.
Yeah.
And at this time, he landed 3 defensemen who have all been top pairing defensemen.
Yes.
And I know Russ is worried about it seeming like patchwork. I think that's valid, but I don't see that happening. They got a good 2-way guy in Ryan Ellis who kind of knows his function. A really good one-on-one defender. When he defends, he reminds me. Now I've lost the guy was on the Devils for so many years and then went to the Red Wings.
Rafalski.
Yeah, he defends one-on-one like Rafalski.
Yeah.
And he's good offensively as well. And really moves the puck and handles, as I said, is a good power play guy. And Ristolainen is better than people thought he was, and he's a big body.
Yeah,
that makes a difference. And I think Atkinson is a better player than Voracek. I know Russ thinks that he's not as good a playmaker, but he is a really consistent.
No, he's a good player. There's no question.
Yeah, I just think he's a better all-around player. He kills penalties,
Yeah.
So I don't think they lose anything there. My only concern is Martin Jones. I don't understand that at all. Like, the guy struggled for 3 years.
Yeah.
So of all the goalies that were out there, that's the one you thought should back up Carter Hart. But
I agree.
I still believe Carter Hart is very, very talented, and there's always some surprise in every division every year. And I just think that maybe the Flyers will be the one that'll move up. I really wanted to put the Islanders there, and I thought about it for a while, but a lot of the things I think the Islanders are going to do, they haven't done yet.
That's tough.
So
Yeah.
I'll leave
right.
And I think some things he's already done, and isn't he being Lamoriello has already done and hasn't announced them yet. That's
true.
It's
I
gotta be
still
happening.
have to do my 3. I haven't done my 3.
Yeah, do
yet.
your 3. Go ahead and best.
Let me just finish my 2.
Yeah, finish that.
Yeah.
Islanders at
Yeah.
2. I still just love this Islanders team. Like
Yeah.
even giving up Nick Leddy, who was their offensive defenseman back there. But I think it's the perfect team for Barry Trotz to coach. Their goaltending is so good because it's got 2 of them.
Yeah.
And their offense is going to get better here. I'm assuming they're going to re-sign Palmieri, and that's one of the guys I think's already been signed.
Yeah.
Hasn't announced yet. But and Anders Lee will be healthy again next year.
Yes.
So I like this team quite a bit, and I think maybe this is the year they have an excellent regular season too.
Yeah, I mean I had the Islanders first, the Rangers second, and Philadelphia third. And the reason I had the Islanders first is because I know that these moves are going to happen. I mean, I'm assuming Parise is going to get signed by them, and if he's on a third line, I believe that Cizikas is going to get re-signed, and obviously Palmieri is going to be re-signed. And with all 3 of those, and Lee coming back. And your favorite goaltenders, Ilya Sorokin, along with Varlamov, maybe I'm cursing them. I'm sure NL King, our friend on Twitter, will probably say I'm cursing the Islanders by picking them to finish first, like you picked somebody yesterday to finish first. But I think they're the most solid team in the division. They have the least question marks. And if they, unless there's an offer sheet or something like that, and they get Beauvillier signed, then I think they're pretty much the best and most complete in the division.
So my 3 is the Capitals. I think people forget Connor McMichael will be in their lineup this year. The only reason he wasn't in their lineup last year was because of COVID, and then it kind of threw his season off, where they were going to do with him, where they were going to put him. This kid can play. He's going to be up for the Calder. He'll be that good.
Okay, that's good to know.
And that's a big thing for them. Also, Ilya Samsonov, with all the stuff with the ATP, we have not seen the right Ilya Samsonov yet, and I think we will this year. Now, if we don't, Vanacek's there, so they do. I
really like Vanacek a lot. I think
getting him back is a solid guy behind him, but I do think we'll see a good Vanacek, a good Samsonov. So there's those 2 things. Second, I have Carolina. Freddie Anderson will get them through the regular season. He will, and that's what he does. And they aren't as good as they were before. And I don't know if they'll go as far in the playoffs unless they do moves at the deadline. But because they really are going to suffer from the push on the blue line. That is where they're going to suffer point-wise. They're tough on the blue line, hard to play against, but all of a sudden they lost a lot of offense and potential offense on the blue line. So that's why I have them second. I do have the Islanders first. We know these moves are going to happen, but even if I was just going with the team as they are today, they still have young guys they could bring up and put in if they had to. They're not going to lose Beauvillier or any of those other guys Mike was talking about. They're not going to lose them. Sorokin is going to be better. They will have a new place to play in eventually by November. The fans will be crazy. A lot of things will be going right for the Islanders, so it would be hard for me not to pick them.
Let's talk about the Islanders for a second now that we've gone through, because the Islanders are my number 1 too. And so the talk about the Islanders for a second and these picks that haven't happened, Kevin. These things that haven't happened. I think they're worthy to discuss. I mean, because somebody said to me today, "Oh, do you think I got a question? Hey, is it possible that the Maple Leafs could go out and get Palmieri? It'd be a good fit for them. He kind of feels like the Zach Hyman thing." And I'm like, "Well, we haven't heard a single rumor about Palmieri to anywhere but the Islanders all year."
I think Palmieri is signed. I think it's in the drawer.
I think all those 3 are in the drawer, and I think
I do too. But why? What is that like? In the past, there was a time when this happened years ago in New Jersey.
I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to get a press release at 5:01 on Friday.
Yeah.
With all 3 of them signing.
But what's the benefit of that? Because this is all positive news. You don't put out positive news on a Friday at 5.
That's a typical Lou thing. It's not about the individuals, it's about the team.
I know, but that's not when you put out
I think there's 2 of them signed, and the third is not, and he doesn't want the third one to know what he's got going. And
that's fair. Yeah,
that's Lou. That's Lou. Or Tarasenko is somehow in this picture, and we just don't know. That's the other thing.
I don't think he's in the picture.
I don't think Tarasenko fits that.
I don't think so either. But we know, like we said, Lou has this thing for I get that. The old Russians and stuff like that.
I think Lou could not Lou. I think Tarasenko could still end up in the metro area, but he's not going to be with the Islanders.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I know New Jersey has talked to him.
And his buddy Artemi in New York, maybe.
Yeah, but I
100%
think New
convinced
Jersey. There is something about New Jersey with that. They have the space. They do need the offense, as we all detailed.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that Parise is set in the Island either. That's the one player I would say.
I'm convinced he's set.
Possibly. From what I've heard, that there's two offers. There's one from the Devils and one from the Islanders, and they're waiting on what's going to happen, right? So maybe he is set, or maybe Lou's just not letting the Devils know what's happening.
Well, I mean, I'm sure he's not going to help out Josh Harris. That didn't end well.
No, for sure. But maybe he's saying you're not allowed to tell the Devils anything yet, or I don't know. But so you think that's how it's playing out, Kevin? You think that's what's going on?
Well, that's just a guess, but there has to be some strategy to it. I don't think he's holding the information just to hold the information. I think he's negotiating with someone. He doesn't want other people to know where he's at in his cap, and something like that. That's more of Lou. Like he never gives media relations any thought whatsoever.
No.
That's why I don't think it's really that. I think
how is he the only one? Of all these GMs, the only one who is able to do this. Like he knows
these players personally.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's right. Well, Steve Yzerman can do it too. So
that's true.
Yeah.
By the way, I have to say I really like it's a small. I'm going to start calling the Detroit franchise the Detroit Lightning, because I like the Mitchell Stevens deal. He's a really talented kid who didn't get a lot of opportunity like Adam Ernie in Tampa, and I think he'll get ice time, and I think he'll thrive in Detroit.
Yeah. Well, right now I would say he's penciled in as Glendenning's replacement, but I think he has the opportunity to move up.
He's a good skater. There's things he could do. I like Mitchell Stevens, always have.
The big news in Detroit, by the way, was that Larkin skated yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, and which is no one had seen him skate. Nobody knew what was going on, and Yzerman said he's optimistic that he'll start the season, and that's pretty good news. And when you add in Pius Suter, which was another good signing by
really good.
Detroit,
really good.
Suddenly they look like they've got two scoring lines now. So.
Well, Ack, you brought up the Leafs and their wing pursuit. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's a wing pursuit or just a forward pursuit, because they have the flexibility of either moving Alex Kerfoot to the wing and then signing a center, or keeping Kerfoot as the third line center and signing a winger. There's, I've heard, Nick Ritchie's name being mentioned, Thomas Tatar's name being mentioned. But the one thing I did looking at it, I'll write about this in a little bit. The one thing they have supposedly a block of $3 to $3.5 million that they've reserved to add a top six forward. I believe what they're doing is they're looking at teams that are up against the cap, that they would be the safety valve for those teams to trade a player like Vegas and Riley Smith, for example. I'm not saying that that's the rumor, but a player like that, they could take that player on, trade somebody else out in that deal, and that would be the guy who would replace Hyman, at least on a short-term basis. So it's something. There's something in the air there, and it'll be something, of course, that we don't expect, but I think that's what's happening.
Interesting. Did you guys hear about the in Vegas, which did you guys hear about that? I was trying to find the details of it, that Vegas turned down an Eichel trade.
I have not heard that.
Yeah.
Well, let's say
I'm trying to find the exact details. Somebody wrote a really reputable writer wrote about this, that there was a deal made.
I didn't see that, but if you and I was on the media call with Kevin Adams yesterday. If you saw what Kevin Adams said, to say that he's not under any pressure is ludicrous. Of course he's under pressure. Now, he cannot do, this organization cannot do the Ryan O'Reilly deal over again. That's a big thing. Kim and Terry Pagula will be, even though they own the Bills, would be run out of this town on a rail if they do that again. They have to get at least 3 assets for Jack Eichel. And the question is, with his health questions, I don't know how they do that. I keep coming back to it. I think he's staying. I think he's going to have the surgery. I think he's going to have to play in Buffalo and prove he's healthy before any team is going to pony up 3 or 4 prospects for him. That's just reality.
I mean, the Rangers are close, Mike. And I was going to say this because there's a question in the chat room. If I didn't get Reeves, who would I want to give like a third rounder or worse, like a 4th, 5th, or 6th for of somebody who is available? And I would have done what Yzerman did, because if I think this is me, if I think Chris Drury is making this trade for Eichel and they lose Zibanejad or Strome, and they'll lose one of them, Mitchell Stevens would have been a hell of a guy to bring in for a 6th-round pick to play 3C or 4C for them. And that's, because again, Rooney is not a great center. He's a good penalty killer. I'd rather play him on the wing or not play him at all, really. But that's fine. I play him on the wing because he's a good penalty killer. But Mitchell Stevens would have been a great pickup for them. But they got harder to play against. So who am I to say?
Yeah, but I think Kevin Adams is in the same position that Joe Sakic was when he was making the Matt Duchene deal. He's going to have to be patient and wait and wait and wait until he gets the offer that the offer that he wants. And if he doesn't do that, if he succumbs to the pressure and gives up Eichel a top line center for a return that's not top line center money, he'll get excoriated in Buffalo. They have to make a good deal.
They do.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's all the time we have for today. We will get into this more. I'm trying to find the name of that. I did get someone's. I'm trying to find who it was. It was one of their big prospects that Vegas just was not willing to go.
Peyton Krebs. It's Peyton
Krebs. That's their best.
Yeah, that was the guy, right? That was the guy. Yeah, for sure.
Not the only one.
I know. I'm just kidding.
No, but he's the guy that they were not willing to let go in this deal.
They can't. They cannot afford to let him go.
Yep. All right. That's all the time we have for today. Folks, remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kevin, for joining us. And thank you for making predictions, which I know you hate to do.